Righty. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday. You got to get started at some point. May as well be now. Fuck, it's freezing cold. Morning, ass.
Monday's a good day to start.
Monday's a good day to Monday. That's
Yeah.
all I can think. Oh, okay. So how was your weekend? Anything fun? Anything exciting? Anything to update us on?
Well, I'm escaping the cold and off to Bali on Wednesday.
That's fair. Well, talk about putting the rest of us in the shade. You're off to Bali.
Yeah, so
Ah.
it was a lot of packing and planning, and if your summer wardrobe wasn't ready, then you're screwed.
Oh,
Because,
yeah.
now it's just winter stuff. Although there are a few spring things coming in already. They do push us, don't they?
Yeah, they push us. Yeah, you have to start thinking about. Well, I don't mind thinking about spring, frankly. I could take a little bit of spring right now. I've had my share of winter, but I know we've still got until at least the end of August.
Oh, yeah.
It's miserable until then.
Well, technically, that's when spring starts. It's
I
September.
know. But in my head, everybody always goes, "Oh, but August it starts warming up." It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's still shit. All right, but anyway, we're not going to let that get us down. Here's something else to get you down instead. Apparently, this morning at like 4 a.m. South African time, Donald Trump decided to raise tariffs to 40%
From?
from America to South Africa and South Africa to America.
Ah.
So anyone who's exporting stuff to the USA, hardworking, South Africans are doing the absolute best selling stuff to the US. 40% is going to be slapped onto your stuff as it enters the US. And conversely, if you're importing anything from the US, you'll also have to pay a massive tariff. Now, it might sound like something worth getting cross with Donald Trump about, but he actually really didn't make it too difficult for this government to comply with a much, much lower tariff. All he said is he wanted four things. He wanted them to scrap BEE for American companies, which makes sense. Why should an American company operating here in South Africa have to do all of that bullshit BE, which we know is bullshit? It's economic enrichment for the elite. That's what it is. That's what those three E's stand for. That was the one thing. The other thing he asked is that please can the government just outright condemn kill the Boer?
Yeah.
I mean, how hard is it for the president and the cabinet and the executive of the country to say it's not a good idea to sing about killing people? You'd think that would be fairly straightforward. So that's 2 out of 2. If they'd done those, they would have already been negotiating down from 40. 40% tariff is hardcore, right? Then there was no expropriation without compensation. They said if you're going to expropriate people, give them compensation, which, again, in basic free market economics is 101, right? I mean, if I take something from you, I must be prepared to pay you for it. Otherwise, I'm stealing it from you, right? That you would think that this was obvious stuff. And then I think the fourth one, I can never remember what the fourth one was. I don't remember exactly where it comes in or what it is to do with, but it could have been something to do with trade. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway,
Was it free self-tanning beds for all?
free self-tanning beds, tremendous, big, incredible tanning beds for everybody. Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's not good. And of course, as usual, the people of the country need to be brought to suffer to the point where they want change enough. This is the sad reality, right? So I'm talking about us. We have to realize, and everyone in this country who still votes ANC has to realize, that these are not your friends. These people are going to go out of their way to make your life a misery, to make it harder and more expensive, and to tax you more, and to put you in a position where your life is worse. Objectively worse, before any of us are going to go, oh, okay, I've had enough of this now, because it's almost like we're abused wives or children, and we just keep thinking daddy's going to change. Daddy's going to get better. He's not going to come home and beat us, and everything will be okay in the long run. And he does love us. He keeps telling us he loves us even after he's beaten us.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to happen.
And the things are going to change.
Yeah, you need to now either report daddy to the police, in this case the police is the US, because they're the only world's policemen that I can think of, or you need to actually fight him. Make sure you're strong enough too. So that's irritating news that I had to wake you up with this morning, but it's necessary for you to know. And you've heard it here first. I don't think anyone else is reporting on this yet. So there we go.
Sure.
What's happening in the comments section? By the way, James, our producer, goes out onto the balcony at like 10. No, don't go. Oh, sheesh. At 10 to 6 in the morning for a ciggy. And I
Yeah.
said to him this morning, you love a ciggy. Hey, you must really love it to go out there. It's so fucking cold.
Oh, I would.
You would?
Oh, I'd go right now.
Really?
Yes.
You smoke in the car?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so do my parents.
Yeah.
That's quite old school. A lot of people don't want people smoking in their cars.
Look, I don't have a new car.
Okay.
If I had a brand new car, that would probably last about 6 months before I would start smoking in the car.
Really? So you'd put it off. You'd think, I don't need to ruin this car immediately. With
Yeah, and then have
old,
it
wet
just-
tobacco smell.
Yeah, and then it just creeps back in. But
Yeah.
it's not like us. It's not as you wouldn't know it's a smoker's car, except for the burnt holes in the back.
Yeah, there are always those marks up here. You know, where,
Yeah,
where the roof meets
Where
the
you're
window.
going over a bump, pothole or something.
I only know because I grew up with parents who smoke, and
Yeah.
they didn't give a shit. Hey, when we were kids,
They would smoke in the car.
oh, they'd
with
hot
you in the
box
back.
us the fuck in the middle of winter. There was no fresh air. Fresh air, please. You had to get used to tobacco air.
No, I'm a very considerate smoker.
I
I
know
will
you are,
not
no.
smoke.
I can't even picture you smoking anymore. I haven't seen you with a cigarette.
Can
in
show
such a
you.
long time. You got them with you.
Yes. No, they're in the car.
Are you still smoking the Texan plains?
Actually, no. I did switch to cheaper ones though, because you
The
know.
Gunstons.
Yeah, I'm just on the Gunstons. What are those blonde ones called? Gilloise.
Gauloise blonde.
Gauloise blonde.
I just had a ciggy in the cold, says Viasin. Yeah, listen, I'm not judging you because I actually think this is a terrible generalization and it's maybe a stereotype full of shit on my side because I've got so many friends and family who smoke. I always find the smokers are the most chilled, happy people compared to the non-smokers are jittery as hell inside. They're doing everything else other than smoking. There's nicotine replacement patches and there's Zyn gum and there's fucking vapes. And the smokers are outside just being chilled and laughing, having a good time.
It's so true. Oh, that reminds me, going to Bali to just
Yes.
remind
Don't
you
take any
that
drugs,
I'm going
Leigh-Ann.
to Bali. Yeah, I had to pack all of my like chronic medication,
Yeah.
the boxes and the
Yeah. You
inserts.
got to have all that shit because if
Yeah.
they think, and you look suspicious.
I look like I'm a traveling pharmacy.
Definitely. Well, you are.
Yes.
I mean, right now, how many pills do you have with you right now?
Quite a few.
How many do you take every day?
Oh, I've lost count.
Really? Is it that
Yeah.
many? Because I take like
Good,
5
it's
different
a good
things.
hand. It's like for some people it would be 3 swallows, and that's no vitamins. It's just meds.
Okay, no. I take like 5 things in the morning. I take some zinc and magnesium and
Oh, those things don't really
no,
count.
but I know, but they're supplements and things, and it's nothing. I'm not taking
Are
any
you on
medicine.
no chronic medication?
Nothing. Thank God. I mean, I'd be bad at taking it. But no, I don't. I only have those vitamins. But it's such a pain. I leave in the morning to come and do the show, for example, and I have one of those bottles from the gym that has like a compartment underneath it with the pills, right? And then I pop all of these like 2 at a time, and then swallow them down with whatever, if it's water or whatever I've got in the juice bottle. And then I always think if someone had to see me, they'd think, "Jeez, this guy's got big problems here," because I'm like literally taking they're 5 pills, so it's like three rounds
Yeah.
of doing these. And I thought, if someone had to see this, they'd think there was something completely wrong. But clearly, that's not even so bad. Are you
No.
doing more than 10?
No.
Oh, okay.
Let me try and see if I have something in here.
Yeah, rummage. Here we go. This is the morning rummage with Leigh-Ann Mole, rummaging through her bag. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I carry spares in case I forget.
Give me one of those. Let me try one.
That's the morning dose.
How many of those? It's not so
Yeah,
bad.
those are 2 vitamins. In
Okay.
terms of chronic, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Jesus, you're falling apart. What are those for? What parts of you?
ADHD.
Okay. What is that you take for ADHD?
I don't know what it is. Just kind of helps me function a bit more.
Okay, all right, I believe you. Go on, what else?
Anxiety.
Look at this. Isn't this exciting? Hold them up for the camera.
I don't know how to get them in there.
What a lot of pills.
Am I
You remind
facing
me
it?
of my aunt who used
Where's
to...
the camera? Is that it there?
I think your camera's over here, Leigh-Ann. She's going to drop them all over the floor. So I have... she's not actually my aunt, but she's a distant relative, and she used to take a lot of pills, but mostly just for fun.
Oh, no. Goodness.
No. And she was old already, but she would drop these pills. Sometimes they'd fall out of her bag, and then the dogs would go and lick
no.
them up and fall asleep for like 3 days.
No shame.
Or the dog would be fucking hyper. Like you just injected it with adrenaline.
And if it was an upper or a downer.
Oh, yeah. And then she'd say, "Hello, darling. You look like you're having a rough day. Would you like to feel better?" And this is, I don't know, I was like 14 or something. Next thing I knew, "Would you like an orange one or a brown one?" And I'd go, I don't know. Like, I don't think I should have either of them. She's like, "Have an orange one." Fuck me. Did I make it through those family lunches being entertaining?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Probably MDMA.
So what I wanted to say about the Bali thing is that it's obviously, well, it's 4 flights there.
All right.
And
Oh,
for a smoker, that's
horrific.
it's a bit of a problem, especially because things have changed now. In the airports themselves, there aren't really smoking areas. And you
Yeah.
can't really smoke outside near the airport
No,
either.
smokers are more. They're less tolerated by society. They're more hated by the people who design buildings, the people who do all of that stuff, than vicious serial killer criminals. I mean, I even saw a vicious serial killer criminal room at the airport the other day, but I didn't see anything for smokers.
It was prayer room,
Like
vicious serial killer room.
Vicious serial
Baby
killer room.
room.
Yeah, exactly. They have the baby room right next to the vicious serial killer room.
Oh,
so
no. They put the prayer room in between. So hoping that the vicious serial killer will stop at the
okay,
prayer
so I
room
got
on the
it wrong.
way.
Okay.
And then, of course, it's no drinking because it's an Ethiopian Airlines flight.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
I'm going
do?
to be a joy. So it's my brother and
She's
I.
going to have no drinks and no ciggies.
And I think he's more worried about his state of mind due to my
Yeah,
behavior.
you're going to be very difficult to manage, hey?
No, you know what? I'll actually be perfectly fine. I'll probably just catch up on sleep.
I like this look that you've got going on here with all the greys and
greys and
whites.
the monochromes
yeah, it's
and
very,
the-
very good, ass.
Oh, thanks.
You, fashionista, huh?
Legs.
All right.
Sorry for showing off my guada. Didn't mean to do that.
All right.
Looks like the kind of girl.
You know, who had a very
Very
neat
neat
space case and school books? Oh, you definitely did.
Yeah, I did.
You had a very neat space case.
Not as neat as some of the girls. I envied them.
Mine was there was shit drawn all over it.
Oh,
It just looked like it had been decorated by either someone who'd eaten a box of crayons and vomited, or I don't even know why. Like it had colors and all sorts of shit. I could hide maths formulas in there like you can't believe. No one would ever find them. So I had all of the equations for physics.
remember we had
Hidden
those
somewhere.
canvas bags that we used to decorate ourselves,
No, not really.
like white canvas.
But there was
I
a
had
point.
pump up the jam on mine.
Yeah, but there was a point somewhere in high school where I just didn't have anything to put my stationery in anymore. I had like one pen, and that was it. I became the opposite of this organized nerd. At some point, I was like, nah, screw that. I'll just have one shitty pen which half writes, and I'll pay attention to a quarter of the class. You stop. You stop trying to prove things at some
Yeah.
point. I didn't care. I was like, okay, if I fail this subject, so what? What's going to happen? Luckily, I didn't fail any, but I mean, there were some that were dodgy. I only really clicked with maths halfway through the final year of school. And thank God for that, because otherwise I would have got, 40% or something for it. But these days, I mean, I could pass with 40%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to say this with peace and love, but kids today are just way dumber. They don't know anything. They look stuff up. They can look shit up. They can find things quickly on the internet or AI.
Can they?
Well, they can.
I don't know.
I don't know. Very young
I'm still,
kids are
I
able
think,
to
more
find.
inquiring than younger people.
But they don't. You may be more inquiring, but you see, I don't mind that. I think being inquiring means you're smart.
Younger people ask questions without Googling it themselves first.
Yeah, but that's just laziness.
Okay,
they're
so
lazy.
then younger people are lazy is what I'm
Probably.
trying to say.
Yeah, probably. But I think it's also a question of just not knowing anything. Have you ever sat down with someone and started a conversation and realized 10 minutes in that if they're not talking about themselves, they have nothing to talk about? They just don't have anything to say. They don't know anything. They've never been anywhere. They haven't read anything. They have no opinions, really. They just, if they're not talking about themselves, they just shut up because there's nothing going through their heads. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's not a universal problem. I have met exceptions to the rule, but it seems to be a thing. You know, unless you have that device going 24/7, helping you update your own software and make you a little bit more operable. I just don't know what people are going to do.
Speaking
getting
of that,
dumber. Yeah,
I
what-
did get a new phone after many years.
Okay, well, I got shat on Friday for my cell phone cover. I had like this one on that looked like it was bought by a tannie in Boksburg.
Because now you're like raw dogging it there.
I'm
You've got
raw
nothing on
dogging it
there.
here because I was
Oh,
so
you had like a wooden looking one,
wooden. No, I had a brown leather one,
brown leather.
which I liked.
I knew it was wood or leather
and
or something.
it just wore off so badly that I started to look like I was poor, and
Poor
you know,
white.
yeah, poor white, and I thought I can't do that. You know,
So I get this phone because now you must know I
it's
had an
very
iPhone
nice.
11.
It's very nice, Leanne.
Thanks. I had an iPhone 11. Decided not to get the 16. Got the 15.
Yeah.
So a lot has changed since the 11.
Okay. What's the biggest surprise?
Well, firstly, oh my gosh! So I thought, let me just try the trade-in route. You know, they put your phone onto a little machine and they measure everything and see its performance, and you can trade it in for a certain amount of money.
Now, an 11, you probably would have got like 1,000 rand for.
Yeah. So I thought, well, it's 1,000 rand.
Sure, of course. Save on the new one.
And they came back with 329 rand or something.
Oh, so it was so fucked.
Yeah, they said the audio was screwed.
Wow.
And I've been saying,
What did you do to that phone?
do you know that everyone's been like gaslighting me because I say I can't hear anymore, and they're saying it's just because you're old. The audio was fucked on that phone.
So now that you got this one, you're like, I can hear.
So loud, I've got to keep turning it down.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so
So your hearing is back.
my hearing's back, which is great. I just needed to pop my
Okay,
my
good.
ears.
That's good.
But yeah, and then it was quite funny. I stopped at one of those little vendors where they have all the cell phone
Yeah.
accessories instead of buying any of them.
Oh, hell no. You don't want to. You know what? If you go to a store that has them, especially one of the like certified store, you're going to pay for a
Exactly.
cover like 400 rand.
So I went and got
hell's
the
that all
screen
about?
protector, the
You
cover.
got this from one of those Zimbabwean oaks.
No, it was Pakistani
Oh,
guys.
Pakistani guys, even
Yeah.
better. You got it for like what, $50?
No, but no, everything. Shame, they kept upselling me. They were
Oh.
like, now you need little covers for these. I didn't know that.
Oh, I don't have those.
So I've got these little goggles on here now.
Oh,
But eventually I was like, guys, please
so how much did you get for the whole lot? How much did you pay for the whole lot?
1,600 rand
Okay,
for everything.
all right. Well, you don't want it to fall.
And the pop socket.
There we go. That's apparently useful.
Yeah, or you either have like something like this. You see, my hands are small, so
You won't reach. You can't. You
yeah,
can't do a
I've
reach
got to be able
around.
to do that, to do a reach around. So yeah.
Okay, maybe there is a machine we can put Leanne in to see what she's worth.
Oh gosh.
Wouldn't it be funny? I would love to have a machine where you put someone on it and it tells you what they're worth. Not in terms of how much money they have.
No,
what
like
they're
how
worth.
valuable they are.
Yeah, like, age, hearing ability, seeing ability, strength,
Cognitive ability.
cognitive abilities,
IQ.
personality, looks,
Flexibility.
yeah, difficulty to buy clothes for,
Executive functioning.
all that kind of shit. And then it gives you like a total out of 100.
And then you get benefits for wherever you are.
What, if you're shittier or if you're better?
Yeah, like if you're better, you get a better house.
Yeah, right.
Nicer things.
I think this machine is called life, actually.
It
I think
is.
that's how it works.
It works out
I think it's called
automatically.
life, and I think that's how it works. So, if you feel things are unfair, I had this discussion with someone the other day. I went to housewarming. It was pretty much my only outing for the weekend. And it was lots of fun. There were no people I knew there except the couple whose house it was. And it was lovely. I mean, I had some interesting conversations. The one guy was like, "Oh, the problem with capitalism is," and I just left that conversation. And then later on, he insisted on asking me what I thought, and I thought I ducked him. At that point, I was like, "I'm going to get something to eat, or I'm going to get something to drink, or just leave me alone," basically. But he wouldn't. And then I suddenly thought, it's the beauty of a free market situation is that if you feel that your boss or your company aren't looking after you, and you think you deserve more than 100 Rand, which is what you're being paid, then you can leave and go and find a job where you'll be paid 150 Rand. And if you're worth it, someone else will pay you 150 Rand. So that's your way to overcome exploitation, right? And if you're a boss and someone is exploiting you because they're working, I don't know, 3 days a week, but they're charging you for 5 and they don't really deliver, then you have the right to fire that person. So it goes both ways. And as long as no one is forcing you at gunpoint to do a job, it's not slavery. If you're being paid and you're paying, then it's a free trade. And you can decide whether this suits you or not and move on. If you don't like it, you can just find another job or they can find another employee.
Yeah.
And that is like the most honest kind of transaction you can do. I'll pay you to do this stuff for me because you're either really good at it or it's something I can't do. And then you come in and you do it and you take your money and you go. And you can complain, obviously. Everybody's allowed to complain. But if it really becomes too difficult and you feel like a slave, leave. But remember, you were never a slave because slaves never got paid.
Yeah.
The whole point with slavery is that someone owns you. And that you're not allowed to do that anymore.
The only thing is, a caveat to that is, can you just up and leave? Is employment elsewhere that easy? And sometimes it's not. You might have certain factors like age, for instance, or
so you're saying that then
BEE surrounding you.
Sure. So you're saying then you have to take what you can get.
Yes.
Okay, but then you don't really have to complain because you don't have room to complain.
Exactly.
Because you are out of options. And maybe that is the best job you can get right now because it's the best job you deserve right now.
Yes.
And maybe
then don't complain about it.
Sure, and then maybe circumstances have really rallied against you and you have all these things that are not your fault that are standing between you and maybe something better. That's unfortunate, but that's also just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
You
Or
know?
maybe someone's given you a chance, someone who knows you.
Yeah.
And has said, I'll help you out.
Maybe.
Prove yourself.
And maybe they're going to pay you less than market wage, but they're saving you. They're saving you from being unemployed and having zero. Oh, it's a tough business, especially in this economy. And on the news of that Trump tariff of 40%, 40% is a lot. I think it's going to hit a few businesses right between the eyes. But remember, who's responsible for this? You could blame Donald Trump. You could say, oh, it's so unfair that he's pushing this. But he gave our government the conditions, I think it was a month, maybe 2 months ago. And you won't have read this anywhere in the mainstream media either, by the way. This is how these guys have been covering up for the government. They are nothing but like the choir at the church that sings with the pastor. The priest or whoever he says some line from, I don't know, Philippians, and then they basically are the chorus. They sing it after him. They're singing from the same hymn sheet, literally. And that's what happens with the media in this country and the ANC. For some reason, I think it's a sunken cost syndrome, where they've just been around each other so long, and they've done everything in cahoots. The government has kind of said to the media, you have to help us, and the media said to the government, we'll help you. And they've done it through the Thabo Mbeki era, the Jacob Zuma era, and now That's why it's taken them so long to.
Is it all media though?
No, it's the big media houses who rely, by the way, on a lot of government advertising. I heard the other day that it used to be that the Sunday Times, which I think is still a newspaper, who knows, is mostly government advertising in the classifieds for jobs.
Jeez.
That makes up the majority of their revenue for that newspaper, or did up to a short while ago, as far as I can tell. Now, that relationship is just not kosher. And so you've got people at these big media organizations who feel that they have to back the president. I don't know whether they think it's patriotic or whether it's their business. Maybe that's their whole business. But they haven't said on any newspaper that I can think of, if those are still a thing, and even the online publication versions, what these conditions, these 4 conditions were, which is why I'm struggling with the 4th one, because I haven't read it on any of those sites. They haven't told the South African population that this was the deal, that after Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa had their meeting, which everyone was watching, that was what they discussed afterwards. These are the 4 things we want you to do. Otherwise, each of those is going to get you an extra 10% tariff. So, that's who you got to blame.
Do you think it was out of being stubborn that we didn't? Or like you say, because things aren't bad enough yet for us to...
No, I don't think there's... You know what? That's a good question. I don't think it's going to have a good answer, though. I think our government are just cuck at everything.
Or is it because they couldn't organize something
They were
like
trying, apparently, to get an extension.
Okay.
Like they do with everything. And I don't think... Like, Cyril's surprised by everything, right? So he's like, oh, was that today? I thought it was yesterday. Oh, I thought it was next week, Thursday. He doesn't know. I mean, he just doesn't... This whole governing thing, he's not taking seriously. But I do hope that they, as a 4th... Whatever that 4th thing is that I can't remember, and I will during the course of this conversation. But I hope there's a 5th one, and I hope that is that they impose personal sanctions on the leaders of this country who are responsible for our suffering.
Yeah.
I hope that happens. I really do. And everybody who's opposed to that and they think, oh, well, the U.S. is interfering in our sovereignty and this is terribly unfair and why would you support another country doing this to us, Gareth? Well, you've got to hit your head sometimes. It's like no one wants their child to get smashed in the face by running straight into a baseball bat. But if the child is stupid enough to keep running into the baseball bat, it needs to eventually be hit in the face to know that that's not a good idea. It's touching the stove. I could use much more mild examples, but I can't help thinking the best example for this government is watching the entire cabinet of South Africa, which is a lot of people, by the way, more than 10 baseball teams, running into baseball bats. That's what they are. These are not smart people. It's dumb pride, says Gray. Silly, puffed-out chest, we will not be bullied garbage. Well, you're about to be bullied, and I don't think bullying is going to be a very pleasant experience for you. Cyril has no cards to play here. He just doesn't. And not all countries are equal. This is a thing that, for some reason, the UN and shitty tin pot dictators all over the world have started to believe that they are equal to the superpowers in some way. That they're running with the big dogs, they're batting in the big leagues. And they're not. You get countries that are in the top tier, you get countries that are in the middle tier, and you get countries that are in the bottom. We may have been in the middle once. We were a very powerful country in Africa. We had a lot of power in terms of trade. We were an entry point to the rest of the continent. We had a largely industrialized economy. Whether we do or not anymore is debatable because Eskom revealed the other day, I don't know if they meant to reveal this, that we are using less electricity than we were 10 years ago.
Yes.
So it's not that they can't supply it. That's obviously part of the problem too. But actually the demand for electricity has dropped.
We've had to find other ways.
I mean, we no longer have the big aluminium smelters that we used to have, which sucked up a lot of power. This is not good news, by the way. This is all terrible news because it means the economy is starting to fall to pieces. We no longer have the kind of big industry players like the Mittal Steels, and before that, Iscors, and those sorts of things, which used to be the backbone of our industrialized economy. So the country is getting poorer and poorer, and now these tariffs are going to punish us even more. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cyril only wakes up at 9 o'clock this morning and goes, "Oh well, I missed the deadline. What are we going to do? Don't worry. I'll just drive to the takeout place in my Maybach and buy some hamburgers to eat this morning," because he doesn't really give a shit about you and me and everyone else in this economy. He doesn't. And the sooner you realize that, the better, because we need to bring about some change. I mean, these were not difficult things to do. If he'd done these 4 things, we'd be sitting looking at a very different picture. Perhaps, possibly, even quite favorable stuff. James has just sent me a message. You notice I don't have my laptop here.
Oh, yes.
Here, the other one was the classification of farmer tax as a priority crime. So that was, I mean, how hard is that? Because you know what they would do, right? I don't think Trump realizes, or the U.S. government realizes, how shitty our police force is. But they could just do that, and then
They could put it
they
down
could
on
say
paper.
it. Yeah, and then they don't have
and
to
then
do
not
anything.
do anything about it.
So there we go. The exemption of USA entities from all black economic empowerment requirements. Again, why should American companies have to give
Yeah.
a percentage of their business away when they weren't involved in South African apartheid policies, right? And if you argue that they were, well, then you have to argue that everyone else in the world who was trading with us at the time also was.
And it should be like that for any country.
And good luck getting people to pay for something they didn't do. This may be a problem for many people who are fans of this sort of sins of the father stuff. But I didn't benefit, neither did Leigh-Ann. Why should we have to pay? Is also a good argument, right? So let's have that argument. But why should U.S. companies have to do it? No land expropriation without fair market compensation. Okay, again, simple. And a clear and unequivocal public condemnation of by the ANC of kill the Boer, kill the farmer. Again, not unreasonable.
No.
So there we go. That's what you're waking up to in terms of
Okay.
news this morning. All right. You had some things you wanted to discuss with us this morning. Leigh-Ann she always comes in with an agenda.
Do I?
Yeah, you do. You've got an agenda. I can never just sit and have a conversation with Leigh-Ann. There's always an agenda.
What gender? I'm a female.
Oh, yes. Very good. Oh, I watched a show. I started watching it last week, and I wasn't going to talk about it until I'd seen the whole of the first season. It's called The Sandman. Has anybody seen it?
Oh, yeah. I haven't watched it, but I know it's very popular.
Okay, so I liked the premise, which was that this is the realm of dreams. That dream is one of... Did I talk about this on Friday? I don't think you did Sandman. Okay, so dream is one of 7 siblings that are eternal beings. I think it comes from DC Comics, or Neil Gaiman, or both.
Oh, that's why I haven't watched it.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so Dream is this character, and it's a pretty good show. I mean, it's well put together. The acting is better than average. It's surprising. It's cute, but there's a problem.
Yeah.
Out of the 8 or so relationships that are featured by characters in the show, 7 of them are gay or trans or...
That's a big part of the population.
It's a fucking monstrous chunk, all right? So this does not reflect reality.
Yeah.
So I don't mind. Listen, I've never complained. I've never been one of those people who's like, oh, there's a gay relationship, or there's a lesbian relationship, or there's a trans person. I'm not one of those sticklers for like, this shit doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have any of it in shows. That would be ridiculous, because it does happen in the real life. The difference is that it happens at a ratio of about 1 in every 10 in real life. Okay? And depending on what kind of society you are bouncing around in, it may be a little bit more or less, but it's somewhere around there. So I would say 90% of the relationships in this show are not between straight men and women, which I just thought is like they're laying it on too thick, you know? I don't
Yeah.
mind. I'm totally okay Bring on the difference, bring on the uniqueness, bring on the variety. Awesome. But honestly, 90% of the relationships are like guys with guys and girls with girls. And then there's a chick who's having a relationship with a dead person.
Oh.
Yeah. And then there are these, it's enough. And,
Yeah.
and they also, just to add insult to injury. Again, I don't think I've ever said on this show that I'm anti any particular part of the population. In fact, we're a very open-minded show. We talk about all this stuff like it is what it is. It's a show about reality. But there's this one character who I don't even know why they inserted this person into the story, because they don't add any value. It's like this guy who owns a house where all these weird people live. And he wants to be a Broadway star. So he gets dressed in drag, and there are 3, like 4 or 5 minute parts of 3 shows where this guy is doing a drag show. But they 3 fucking times. I mean, I don't find that entertaining. I fast forwarded through it.
Yeah.
So it added no value to the story whatsoever. But it was obviously, I don't know, someone's nephew who wanted to be a drag queen and needed to be in this show, or I don't know who they're pandering to with that. It just struck me as completely fucking weird. And it spoiled the whole series. I don't want to watch season 2 now. I just know it's going to be more propaganda. They're like shoving this
I need
propaganda.
to be able to identify with stuff that's going on and things that I watch.
I don't mind if I can't identify. I mean, it's a story about like the dream realm, so it's going to be weird. But it bears so little connection to reality that I just found I was being propagandized to, and it didn't rub me up the right way. Sorry.
Yep, there you
I
have
just
it.
think enough, like Hollywood has got to stop doing this to us. They've got to stop telling us that the sky is orange. It isn't. It's blue. We all have eyes. Stop doing this. It's fucking nonsense. Really, it's not too much to ask either. There's got to be a reflection of something to do with the real world, even in a fantasy show like that. And it not because right in front of you and saying you have to eat this. And it looks bad to you, but they're going, you better eat it.
Yeah.
You better like this. Anyway.
Well, speaking of the absolute bizarre,
Yeah.
have you seen any clips from the Jamie Kern-Lima podcast?
Well, the one with Meghan Markle, we've made a
Yeah.
lot of fun of over time. Why is there an update?
No, there are just more and more
There's so many.
skits coming in, and I just like the way the one ABC presenter introduced the segment, because you would think when you're watching ABC, you'd think it would be kind of neutral, the introduction to it. But this woman wasn't having any of it.
Have you got a clip for us?
I do.
Okay, I
Do you
love
have
it.
it, James?
Let's watch, James. Let's go.
Now, I've tried all week to save you from the dangerous weapon-grade levels of cringe of this following interview, a podcast featuring Meghan Markle, but alas, we must all suffer together. Here is Meghan talking to a woman called Jamie Kern-Lima, who seems to be even more fake and insufferable than the Duchess.
Very first question, because I think in friendship it's so important. And I think so many people also have this question for you is, Meghan, how are you?
Yes, it really is that awful. The whole hour-long ordeal may have even been longer. I may have blacked out from smacking myself in the head.
Okay, now she's actually on Sky
Sorry,
News.
Sky,
Her name is
yeah.
Rita. She's terrific. I've seen a lot of her stuff. But how awful is that Jamie Kern-Lima chick? Again,
I don't know who's worse, her or Meghan.
Meghan, how are you?
It is absolutely
She's bad,
horrendous.
right? Now, why does she have to have a podcast? The Jamie Kern-Lima show. Why? Who asked her? Her dogs?
She must have some kind of following. Wow, I just don't want to be those people.
I mean, it's just amazing to me how everyone is cringing the hell out over Meghan Markle. She's gone from being, I'm sure there were little girls who watched her riding in that carriage when she married Prince Harry and thought, oh my God, this chick is at the top of the world.
She had Harry on her dream board. And
No,
now
but let's forget about all that. Just say the first time you ever saw Meghan Markle, you were a little English girl and you were standing next to the road in Windsor and you watched this princess in a tiara and, a horse-drawn carriage with a prince next to her, looking beautiful. You knew that maybe she'd been a TV star before, but now she's a princess. This is like the best thing that could ever happen to any human being. And you were a little girl and you were at an impressionable age and you thought, oh, I could only wish that would happen to me. This would be heaven for me, right? And then you watch over the period of, 6 years since they've been married?
Longer.
Maybe 7, 8. And you watch this unfurl into this pathetic pastiche of like a soap opera that's gone horribly awry. And suddenly she's on a shit show like that, talking about the power of yachts.
I can't even hear it.
It's so bad. And pretending that she's making original ideas come to fruition in her kitchen when nothing that she's doing is even slightly interesting. Sprinkling fucking nasturtiums on her children's sandwiches, and she thinks she's discovered
cereal and
She
everything.
thinks she's discovered the cure to cancer.
No.
How do you go from being a bona fide princess who had it all, and you and your husband have made such cuck decisions? This just proves like you could win the lottery 50 times in a row. You could be given everything you've ever dreamed of, and you would still fuck it up by your own cuck decisions. Because really, everything that's happened to Harry and Meghan has happened because of their cuck decisions.
I think the height of my respect for her was when she was an actress in Suits, because she was a good actress, and that was it.
Yeah, and she was the hottest person on Suits by a long way, right? I mean, she was, and she's still in that clip. Every time I see her, I think, well, nature and your genes dealt you a great hand. You're a very attractive human being, but you're just made of like shit sauce inside. You're like a turd sandwich filled with shit sauce. Inside, you just have the personality of Gargamel from the Smurfs. You're like the worst person. You've brought nothing but rotten fruit to bear for you and your husband and your children. I mean, they could have been running around palaces right now with nannies and having the most incredible privilege available to human beings. You and Harry could have cut a ribbon or two every 3 days. You could have dressed up for, this and that event, been invited all over. Now, I don't think anyone in Hollywood wants them at their house because they could see they're just sponges and they're looking for a way to make some money.
Trying too hard.
Selling their shit. She's selling jam, for fuck's sake. When we were going through financial difficulty, my mother sold jam. Like, that's what Megan's doing now. My mom was like, would you like to buy some jam? Now Megan's doing it,
Oh, no.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
Fuck. Anyway. How awful. So that's apparently getting all kinds of attention every other week. You would have thought it would have died down by now. In a world where the attention span of people watching the news is that big, it's amazing how long this thing has lasted.
It's carried a while.
It's getting worse and worse. Okay. I saw that Diddi Mabuza had died last week. He was our former deputy president. And I didn't say anything for the whole of last week because I've realized, like, when I say things about people who are dead, I usually step on a couple of eggshells. People are very sensitive about the dead for some reason. So I've waited a week. I saw on one of the news channels, because it comes up on my Twitter feed, that they were doing around-the-clock funeral coverage or whatever on Saturday. They were showing all of these. This is so tasteless, by the way. James Tian's in for Flex this morning, who's in KZN visiting his family. Tell me if this is tasteless. You have a whole bunch of black G-Wagons that the family clearly are driving. Because this guy pilfered, this Diddi Mabuza stole so much money from us taxpayers, stole it from you, the people of South Africa, that his family drive around in G-Wagons. And ENCA think it's somehow a ratings bonanza for them to show, and again, I only saw this clip on X, so it may have been a very small part of the overall coverage, but to show his bloated, corrupt family driving out of an expensive house with a high wall in the northern suburbs of Joburg to go to Mpumalanga to see this piece of shit buried. This is what they want us to see. Now, I don't know anyone in Mpumalanga who would say, well, thank goodness we had Diddi Mabuza because he made this province a better place. But his family are leaving their expensive house in Johannesburg.
They're the only ones who benefited.
In expensive cars that they benefited from to go and see this man laid to rest. And I feel nothing. I feel nothing except that I'm going to set a reminder on my phone to remind me every month that Diddi Mabuza is dead. Died at 63. I don't know. There are people in the ANC who are saying he was poisoned. I just don't think anyone cared about him for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Remember, he was one of the Premier League. There was him, Supra Mahumapelo in the Northwest, and Ace Magashule in the Free State. These were three of the most crooked people in South African history that stole and manipulated money for their own foul ends to the point where their provinces are still basket cases. I mean, there is just nothing that works in the Northwest or in Mpumalanga or the Free State. And for anyone to make a fuss of Diddi Mabuza's death, it's just such bad taste. It really is awful, bad taste.
Yeah.
I don't have anything nice to say about him. Oh, good, we got Hanan. I've been missing Dr. Hanan.
Yes.
And we've had many questions.
We've been in a rapid cycle of
deterioration. We've been spinning out of control, Doc. Listen.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. So what's been going on?
Well, let me tell you, your name came up on Saturday. I was at a housewarming, and there were a lot of depressed people there. And I said to them, you fucking people, you need to go and see Dr. Hanan because you're a disaster. And I'm having no fun talking. No, I'm kidding. They were actually very nice people. But one of them did say that she struggles with depression. And I said to her, what is wrong with you? Just get over it. Dr. Hanan told me you got to spend your time in the present. Stop being in the past. Stop being such a criminus. Get over it.
Simple. Just simple.
Yeah, and you know what? She skipped away with the joys of winter under her toes.
A daisy tiara in her hair.
Yeah, she was like a happy jumping princess after I said that. All right, so listen, there's actually a lot to talk about. We had a couple of people who had questions for you, but here's one from one of our listeners. All right, a serious one. We hardly do serious stuff on the show, but this is serious. I'd be grateful if you could ask Dr. Hanan what advice he would offer to family or friends who have a loved one in a rehab facility under suicide watch. Oof. This is the first time that this person has been in such a facility, although he has been struggling with depression for several years. We were allowed to visit him. We will be, allowed to visit him in 2 weeks. Any guidance on how to approach this, both during the visit and beyond? I appreciate the positive impact you and your show continue to have on so many people. Keep up the incredible work, even with those brutal early mornings. Cheers, Tim. Well, I'm glad Tim acknowledges
the mornings
that we suffer
yes.
more than this person on suicide watch to bring him the show.
Thank
you, Tim. For that reason, we'll give you over to Dr. Hanan, who can help you with the other parts.
So suicide is on the rise. It's getting worse and worse. Men and women are attempting more suicide. They're succeeding. Because actually we live a life, unfortunately, with all the advances in technology, we live a life that's more meaningless, more purposeless. There's less drive, there's less chase, there's less meaning in attaining one's goal. people feel less attached or less connected to what resonates with their spirit, and people find an alternative, which is, well, I don't want to suffer anymore, and therefore the potential, the possibility of ending the suffering is a real alternative. So suicide is a real thing, and somebody's on suicide watch. What I would advise to you as a family member, two things. Number one is a sense of connection. We know that 75% of people that attempt suicide don't have meaningful connections in their lives, or at least they don't feel that they have meaningful connections in their lives. And apart from you obviously offering support and ensuring that they're getting the right help, offer meaningful connections. Try connect on common denominators, try make sure that they are heard and they feel heard in terms of what they need, needs fulfillment, a sense of connection, a sense of belonging. And secondly, what's very important for me to mention, I think this will make a big difference to anybody whose family members are in rehab and who are away from kind of like the normal social day-to-day life, is all these rehabs, they really kind of isolate you from the world, and they teach you to do all kinds of magical things, but they don't integrate you really well into society. And what I suggest is at least teach them or work with the professionals who are on board, professionals who are in these rehab facilities, on integrating your loved ones into real society. Because once they are in rehab, they learn how to function within that culture, within that social environment. But once they get out, it's a brand new world and they don't know what to do with themselves. It's very difficult to integrate. They don't have a sense of purpose. And over 50% of people that attempt suicide, they lack a sense of purpose. So not only should you offer them that connection as a relationship, but you should offer them some form of an out or look out, help them look out for things that are meaningful to them, whether it's a job, whether it's some way of creating some income, whether it's connecting to their kids, reconnecting to the kids, reconnecting to their spouses, parents, loved ones, friends, colleagues, but finding a way to help them connect to other people, as well as offer them a sense of purpose once they're out, so they can integrate well into their normal social life once they're out of the artificial rehab community.
All right. Yeah, this is actually an extraordinary thing that suicide is on the way up. I mean, you would think life is probably a lot less hard than it has been in any generation before this one. And I'm by no means making light of the fact that people feel that they're so desperate to do something about it that it could even mean, leaving life behind is the best alternative. I find that very difficult to understand myself, but I know it's happening. What do we know about the statistics? Is it young people? Is it old people? Is it mostly men? Is it mostly women? I mean, do you have any idea on this stuff, Doc?
Yeah, so it's very much the younger generation. And because whilst technology, again, access to technology has gone up, and by all practical metrics, we are living much more, let's call it affluent lives. And we are much more well off than we were 50 years ago. Exactly.
Let me just qualify that by saying you don't have wild beasts attacking you in your cave. You're not scrounging for food.
Access to food, access to water. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But think about our sense of purpose. What did we have to do, Gareth, 30, 35 years ago when we felt bored? Well, we'd knock on our friend's door and we'd go and play. We'd go outside. And these days, what do we do when the kids are bored? Well, they get on their cell phones. Everybody's kind of watching their sunset through their recordings on their cell phone, or watching TV while they're playing Candy Crush on their cell phone. Everything is done through their cell phone, which gave us an excuse to not connect to others. And this lack of connection and this increased artificial connection to the real world, because we think the thumbs up and the likes are real thumbs up and real likes. We think, just because person X liked your post, we think that person X really liked your post. And we think, you have 900 odd friends on Facebook. You actually think you have 900 friends in life. It just doesn't translate into real life. If you were in trouble, with all those 900 friends come and call you or come and visit you or look after you. So it's an artificial way of living. It's like, like put a sticker on real life, but it doesn't really represent real life. So we're becoming more lonely, less connected. We are lacking in sense
right.
of purpose, and that's what's driving the younger generation to find alternatives.
So, I mean, maybe the alternative to getting suicidal or to allowing suicidality to become a part of your everyday life, limit the amount of time you spend on these devices would probably be a good bit of practical advice. And as we were saying jokingly at the beginning of this, is like live in the moment. Be around the people you want to be around. Try to make the most of every situation and find meaning and purpose in little things before you start looking to save the world and expect some, Marvel superhero-sized cosmic journey to alight on your lap and take you into some unbelievable world. Like, maybe the little things are where the magic is located.
Yeah, very much. Gareth, how many times do I say on the show, if you want to have freedom, that comes with responsibility, and nobody's coming to save you. You have to take responsibility for your own life. How many times do I have to say the chin up versus the chin down?
Right.
You got to look forward. You got to ask
and-
yourself, not why do I feel, but what can I do?
And that's the other thing, is like, stop externalizing responsibility. Like, there is actual
Completely.
stuff you can do right now, you can change in your own life. Who can control the stuff that is beyond your abilities to control? Don't worry about that. The government, the state of the roads, the state of electricity, the geopolitical tariff increases that Donald Trump is busy implementing in our economy. You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is tidy your own house, is make sure that your little part of the world looks nice, is wash your face in the morning and, take care of someone else, help somebody in your neighborhood who needs help. Those are the things you can do. And guess what? You'll feel better.
No question. You got to live your life with intent. And I always tell people, what's your framework? What's your way to getting you from point A to point B? What is your point B? Ask 100 people, what are your goals in life? And 99.9 will not have a clue. How do you manage your life without goals? How do you manage your life without direction? And I always tell people, I never blame the person for not getting from point A to point B. I blame their framework. And people then say, well, are you not allowing the person to abdicate responsibility? And I say it's the opposite. The moment you blame yourself, in other words, the reason why I'm not behaving is because I'm depressed. The reason why I'm not behaving is because my grandmother was an alcoholic. The reason why I'm not behaving is because I'm lazy. The reason why I'm not behaving is because I've got ADHD. Now you are giving yourself permission to not get from point A to point B. Now you're justifying why you're not getting there. But the moment you blame the framework, now it's your responsibility to go and alter, tweak, upgrade, level up your framework to get yourself from point A to point B. But the most difficult question that anybody can ask themselves is, what do I want? We all have these grand visions. I want to be healthy and I want to be wealthy and I want to have amazing life and I want to be happy. But hold on one second. What does it mean? What does it mean wealthy? And why do you want wealth? What does it mean to have a great life? And what does it mean to you? Exactly. There must be meaning beyond the hard work. Listen, hard work is inevitable. How many times do we say it on the show? Being healthy is hard, being unhealthy is hard. Being in a good relationship is hard, being in a poor relationship is hard. Being financially secure is hard, being financially insecure is hard. The hard is part of the deal, but what's behind the suffering?
Well, if you set stupid goals, you'll win stupid prizes. So
Completely right.
Honestly,
right.
like, so many people have shitty goals and then they wonder why, when their life ends up being super ordinary or worse, it's so unfair. Look at those people who've decided that they're going to go and live in a log cabin on an island. Look at how happy they are. Well, you set shitty goals. Maybe if you'd set a goal like that, you would have achieved it and you'd have been, in your own mind, happier. There's one other thing I want to ask you before you go, though. Have you ever been suicidal?
Never. And by the way, have I ever thought about it? Have I ever contemplated it? Has it ever crossed my mind? Of course. I mean, listen, we are thinking, creative human beings, and we all go through insufferable states. We all go through loss, and we all go through grief. and we all go through disappointment, and our first girlfriend breaks up with us, and our first friend tells us we're not good enough, and a teacher says this, and then a mom or dad says that. So of course you think, I want to escape the suffering, and that's an option, but it's never an option. So the thought always crosses, and everybody's had the thought of, I wonder what life would look like if I wasn't here. I wonder who would be at my funeral. I wonder who would be sad. But it never crosses that line, okay, well, what do I do about it? How do I materialize it? Because actually I look at the alternative and how do I make my life meaningful?
Sure. All right. Thanks, Doc. We will be back with Dr. Hanan next week, Monday. Send us anything that you want to ask him, like that thoughtful email from Tim, who's obviously dealing with a very serious situation himself. But it doesn't have to be serious. You can ask us stupid stuff as well. Dr. Hanan is good at all of it. He really is. His name comes up often when I'm talking to people, and I think, wow, okay, I'm not the shrink, but he's the smart shrink. Here's some free information from him. And then they kind of look, and I'm pretty sure I'm translating it as well as I can. I'm not qualified. They look at me, and then you could see something kind of, the penny drops. And who knows, maybe they improve a little bit, but a little bit is better than none.
Yeah, and like the doc says, it's about setting the right goals, but he's always got these nuggets of information that are easy to remember, but they're actually quite easy to implement as well.
Practical, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
It doesn't need to be a year's worth of in-depth therapy. It's just applying these little nuggets of information.
All right, well, there we go. Serious thing for this morning. By the way, we've got a very interesting discussion coming up. I think you'll find it pretty interesting, Leigh-Ann, with someone who's been on the show before. His name is Ronen Aires, and he's put together a survey about Gen Z, which I think you're going to find very, very exciting. So it's called the Gen Z Economy Report, and we'll find out all about that. This is a collaboration between Student Village, which he's one of the founders of, and Bronwyn Williams, who does Flux Trends and, of course, our show Biz Trends here on the Real Network. So we're going to find out from Ronen what we need to know about Gen Z.
Love that.
No frills, no holds barred, all the stuff you actually need to know. And if you want to get hold of Dr. Hanan, you can get in touch with us. Contact at thereal-network.com. Email us today. We'll put you in touch with him. Or we'll get him on the show to deal with your thing, whatever it is, anonymously. All right, we'll be back in a moment, just after 7.
"2025 is absolutely flying by, so it's time for the guys to say fucking whoa and welcome back Darby Lowe to catch us up on the first half of the sporting year. Strap yourself in for a recap on the highs and the lows of the last 6 months. We're talking about the big winners and losers of the year so far, along with preparing you for what the second half of the year has in store for us locally and internationally. It's episode 55. It's your 2025 halftime catch-up show. Let's get into it.
What I've seen about our counterparts in West Africa is you go into a corporate space, business meeting, or even the head of state, they rock up in their mpura. You understand? They know it's a business meeting. I do not care. I'll rock up in mpura. That's who I am.
This is who I am.
You get what I mean? Corporate bankers in South Africa, you cannot rock up in a two suit, or let's say then your navy suit and then two shirt. Colorful. No, that's too colorful. You understand? We need to push to actually live who we are. You know, it
and
must
be proud of it.
And be proud of it. And the society, maybe in the US it must be a different story, but here, if you are in South Africa, you need to be able to rock up in a business meeting with international guests in a two garment.
I love that.
Because the decorum cannot be someone else's standard.
phela mina ngiyinsizwa mina ngiyinsizwa.
All right, we're back. We're live. I was just talking to our guest, Ronen. He's going to be joining us in the next couple of minutes. He said he had an ice bath this morning. You know, I tested the temperature of my pool the other day. I've got one of those thermometers that you point and then it comes up on an LED screen. I used to use it in the laboratory. Anyway, this thing tells me that my pool was 6 or 7 degrees.
That's pretty close to 0.
But that's not as cold as what he was in. Lunatic. All right. So here's some stuff that you also need to know this morning. And this is quite a big story. It's come up in the comments section already. But KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has made explosive allegations against senior SAPS leadership, claiming that the Deputy National Commissioner, Shadrack Sibia, obstructed investigations into political assassinations and organized crime by stalling over 120 sensitive dockets. He also accused the police minister of protecting politically connected individuals, disbanding key task teams, and interfering in crime intelligence. These claims suggest deep-rooted political interference and possible collusion within the SAPS. So I don't know if you're aware of the story of General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. He's the real thing. You know how you talk about those good cops, the cops who wanted just root out all the bad guys, do the right thing, catch the criminals, put them in jail. The kind of cops that when you're a little boy, you decide, I want to be a policeman so I can get the baddies.
Make the world a better place.
And he's one of those guys. Everyone who knows him that I've spoken to, everyone who's ever dealt with him that I've read about, every single thing that has been said or written about this man in the media seems to indicate that he is the kind of person we need in South Africa. And he's saying some quite scary things about some very, very powerful and connected people. I certainly hope that he manages to win. I'd like to see a guy like this actually get into a position of power where he is in charge of the entire police force and he can start rinsing out all these blockages, these bad eggs, these bad people, and cleaning up the police so that they can look after us. We pay for the police. You pay for it with your tax money. There are so many people in this country who either have no respect for the police.
Yeah, or don't even utilize them to their
no, I mean,
full capacity.
you probably would
we
call
just have private companies.
You'd probably call your private security before you'd call the police, and we don't trust them, and we know that they are filled up to the brim with corrupt and just incompetent people. But there are guys like this, and please believe me, he seems to me, he seems like he's the real thing. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. So good luck to you, dude, and strength to you. You're going to need it. He's got some big targets there that he's talking about. And I sincerely hope he manages. Again, he's probably not going to get any support from the president or any of those, because the president can hardly support his own agenda at the moment, let alone someone who's trying to do their job. But let's see. Maybe it'll happen. And then you have news on, this is very important information, everybody. The latest emoji on your phone. This is the kind of shit that can sink ships. Okay, it can launch wars. This is a bigger story than Iran and Israel. This is the most important thing. And you think I'm kidding? But for some young people in this world,
they look out
the
for
latest
this stuff.
emoji is way more important than whatever's going with tariffs or international peace or war. So what is it?
For me, it's always, and I picked up on it again because of getting a new phone and just everything.
Are you
updating
emotional? Are
and-
you crying about this
Yeah,
emoji?
I'm doing the crying emoji.
Okay, yeah, right. What's this latest emoji?
But for
Have
me,
they finally
what's-
given us an actual dick and tits?
Well, I was going to say the first thing I look for is something rude.
Yeah.
Now, I've said that it's the latest emoji, but the plural of emoji is?
Emojis.
No, it's emoji.
Oh,
So the latest
so one emoji, many emoji. Okay. Oh, so you've got a whole bunch.
There are 8
Have
new
they
ones.
got us a pair of tits and a dick yet? Or do
I
we
don't
still
know,
have to
maybe
use
you
those
can try and
stupid
make
vegetables?
something up with this. There's another vegetable.
Okay. What's the new vegetable?
Do we have them?
James, please put them up. This is massive. This is breaking news.
You would have seen these already. It's not breaking news.
Oh, really? Are these already out there?
Look, I've seen one of them. I noticed the top left one.
All right. So what do we got? Like, what's that for?
That's like a sad, tired, had no sleep
Okay.
face.
Right. Then the fingerprint.
Fingerprint for fingerprint ID.
Okay.
The
splotch.
Splotch. The radish. So there's your vegetable
a
to try and do
radish.
something with.
Can't really do. You can't do a rude body part with a radish, hey?
Don't
Any
know.
ideas, anybody?
Maybe it's a boob with a nipple cap.
No, I don't like it.
A butt
But
plug.
that could be it does come maybe a bit butt pluggy.
You've
Okay.
got a tree with no leaves.
A winter tree.
A winter tree.
Okay.
A harp.
A harp. So the Irish will like that.
Yes, a shovel, and then a flag. And
That's the English flag, but it's missing a lion. So as a vexillologist and
Yes.
and a person qualified in heraldry, I have a problem with that flag because it has 2 lions. You need to have 3.
So in no world is there a place,
That's England.
an instance that would be used with 2 lions.
Only if you were it would probably be pre-Henry I. So we're talking like in 1100, when the Norman coat of arms from northern France, where William the Conqueror came from, when he conquered England in 1066 at the Battle of Hastings, he would have probably carried 2 lions, because the Normans had 2 lions, the Dukes of Aquitaine had 1 like that, and then England took 3.
Well, you know what? 1100's called, and they wanted that emoji.
So someone clearly, I mean, someone's very particular about using the Angevin Norman English arms with the cross of St. George. It's a strange combo. Okay,
Or
there we
someone
go.
fucked up.
So I think someone screwed up. That's more likely. I don't think they exactly have someone who's qualified in heraldry making their emojis. Although, I will tell you, heraldry used to be the language that probably first used these kinds of pictures to communicate very complicated things across vast distances and in the fog of war. So maybe they should hire someone who's got a bit of heraldic background, because they would do very well to make symbols, which are the language of heraldry, that much clearer and more useful to people. So is that it? Those are the only ones?
Those are them. So the only one that you can really kind of be rude with is the splash.
The radish.
Or
We turned it into a butt plug. Are you kidding? We can do anything on this show.
Or the splash. If you
What would
use it
the
in
splotch
conjunction
be
with,
for?
like, imagine aubergine splash.
Okay. I don't know why then. It's just, maybe there's a way that Apple can tell if it's an adult or a child using it. And frankly, children are going to work it out anyway. But like, we've got to have a pair of tits and a dick at some point. Don't we? It's so stupid and childish that we can't use these things. We have a middle finger, which is basically fuck you. We've got that, but we don't have a dick or
Okay,
a pair
hang on.
of titties.
I've got information on this flag.
Okay, go.
It's called the flag of Sark. Exceptionally reserved ISO 3166 code for the Sark, which may show as the letters CQ on some platforms. The flag for Sark was the first flag emoji sequence using 2-letter ISO codes. This is like a weird coding thing. It's a
like
flag
naval
sequence
signaling or something.
combining regional indicator symbol letter C and regional indicator symbol letter Q. What does it mean to anybody?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I thought my
I'll take the
explanation was
radish
more fun.
sploosh.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay. All right, there we go. Very important, everybody. The latest emoji, which is plural,
Yes.
on your phone. All right, so let's go from emojis to the real. I mean, we may be talking about Gen Z already without knowing it, but let's talk about something even more exciting and important. Bring Ronen in here, James. Let this man come and sit down. I love this guy. I had. When did we have lunch? Last year? This year. Okay, good. Always good to see him. Smart guy, except with his stupid. There we go. Just walk right in front of the camera. It's fine. Except for the stupid ice bath thing, you've always impressed me. You're ahead of the curve. He's a very, very smart man. He's got decades of experience connecting brands to young audiences. He started Student Village and is the CEO, South Africa's premier youth marketing agency. And he led the creation of the Gen Z Economy Report, which he's going to tell us about today. So you'll hear it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Although I suspect You and Bronwyn from Flux Trends discussed it on her Biz Trends show not so long ago in this very studio.
Correct, but I think Bronwyn took things on the Bronwyn tangent.
Yeah, she gets very academic about some of it, right?
Yes, I think
But
we're
she's
going to get
very
real
good.
today.
Okay, so I want to know, first of all, how are you?
I'm really
You're
good.
looking well. You don't change at all.
Thank you.
No.
Well, I'm turning 50 soon.
Shit. Okay, but the ice baths are helping?
Makes me feel 25 inside.
All right. So let's talk about this Gen Z economy report. First of all, why did you decide to do it? Because we're all fascinated by Gen Z, but who actually has the time to study these people?
Yes, I think firstly, it's our business. So
Okay, all
we
right.
need to be on the pulse of things, and
Okay.
and so we do this kind of research every year. And being in this kind of business for over 25 years, I've always been fascinated about the human condition and how people and generations change over time. So if you think of me, I'm in that nexus of people that are between 18 and 25 years old. And for 25 years, I've been seeing cohorts come through.
Right.
So,
So what have you noticed? I mean, overall, what are the big trends before we get into the Gen Z economy report? But what has changed from when we were that old?
if you think about it, when we were that old, the world seemed to be like a friendlier place. Things seemed to be easy. We didn't have much access to information. We had a really, I say, decentish life. Things were like kind of fun. And this cohort is really like living in a world that is on fire. So in flux and on fire. So they haven't known a really good world. And
They're full of shit, though, because we were living at the end of the Cold War, for God's sake, and things were all changing at rapid paces around us. There was instability. There was a lot of chaos in the world when we were growing up. But I think we were raised in a smaller world in some ways. I don't know if it was worse. I think they have less to complain about, if you ask me.
yeah, so I actually look at it a different way because they're so hyper-connected that they're so connected to everything that is happening in the world. We knew what was happening kind of around us.
Right.
Where, say, if you're following a war, you can get an alert every 30 seconds about something that's happening in another country.
Okay, that's true.
That has nothing to do with you, and it keeps you in this hyper state of almost PTSD. But if we get to this generation and we kind of compare them to the ones before, what I really see is like if you buy a new device, what you usually get is new features and new upgrades, and maybe some bug fixes. So I know you had a lot to say about millennials before, and it was all about I. So this generation I see is actually nicer,
Are they?
and it's I and we.
Okay.
So millennial was more about, it's all about me.
So are we agreed then at least that the millennials were the worst generation?
They were one of the toughest.
Okay, Ronen's much more polite than I am. Okay, so let's talk about these guys, because, I mean, we've had it with the millennials. Who wants to talk about them? Let's discuss how these young people see the world, how they participate in the economy, and maybe, for starters, you can tell us why a report like this is important for us. For people who are listening to this and are going, I don't want to hire these people. I don't deal with generational stuff. Why would it be important and valuable to me? I mean, that may be the myopic view of some people. Why would Gen Z matter to everyone?
So if you just look at the numbers, so in South Africa, if we're 60 odd million people, those that fit into Gen Z are 27 million people.
Almost half.
So my question is, can you afford to ignore them?
Yeah.
So if you look at them, they're from early teens right through to the age of 30. So they're in your business. It's not like this wave that's coming. They're already arriving at the door, or they're already in there. And they just look at things very, very differently.
Okay. So how do they look at the world, and how do they look at the economy?
So they're hyper-connected. So like I said before, they're tech natives. They're born in a world where they don't know analog. They don't know test patterns on TV screens. They don't even watch TV screens.
Yeah, exactly.
So So they exist. They're quite happy both in the real world and the virtual world, and they are, how do I say, they've come into a world that's really tough, but they come in with a different kind of attitude, and this attitude is more like, I'm going to make a plan.
Okay, that's good.
And so it's amazing. So they're positively charged. They're using technology and they're smart to really make it happen. And they're really savvy and discerning when it comes to what they spend on. And that's where things get really, really interesting.
So far, what's not to like, right? I mean, Leigh-Ann, do you feel that, because you work with a couple of Gen Z people, and obviously this survey is more empirical. Please pick that microphone up. It's so embarrassing. It's done between your tits.
I've tried.
It's almost an emoji.
I've tried
is.
to, but it needs Viagra.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I think the biggest things for me are I'm picking up that Gen Z almost has a better work ethic than millennials had. And I think it might be because, and now I'm putting it together, millennials were very much I, and it might be this thing that you're saying about Gen Z being I and we and making a plan.
Yeah, so if you look at this generation, they're like natural born hustlers.
Uh-huh.
So they know they need to make a plan.
Right.
So if you look at where they're getting their money from, the highest ranked item was side hustles. Then parents, then government. And parents equals like, it could be mothers, lovers, brothers, it's a whole chain of people that you know, and then government and grants and stuff like that. So one is the nature of Gen Zs are changing. So even if you go to universities, so if you think about when you went to universities, potentially it was seen as a place of privilege and you needed lots of money to be there. But now most students are funded by the government. So the nature of what universities even look like these days is very different. So what you're seeing is, in terms of the generation that's making things happen, is that they're just taking things into their own hands. And it's kind of like I look at the parable of the boom gate. So the other day I went to Mill Park Hospital, came out, and there's a guy at the boom with a parking ticket. When was the last time you went to a place that had a boom?
With
a
an
guy
actual,
at the boom,
yeah.
it says 12 Rand. And then you get into this.
I'll tell you where. The only other place I've been to that's like that is the SAPS.
Yeah. and then he says 12 Rand, and you've got 50, and I don't have change.
Yeah,
and then you get into
right.
that whole thing.
What a nightmare.
So that's like 1.0. Then you go down the road to a shopping center, and there's now a machine, and you feed the machine. That could be the next generation.
Right.
And now when you go to Santon and
you have an app on your phone that puts it up automatically.
Yeah. And that's how I see the iterations of how these generations are happening. Are they working harder? If I was a company, I'd be very worried about this generation coming in. For a simple reason is that they see their side hustle as their passion.
Right.
They're wanting it to get steam. So they actually want their side hustle to be the gig.
So if you're their boss, they are only doing what they have to get paid.
Exactly. So that's their hedge, and that's their security, and they want to make sure as their side hustle gets steam, they're out of there.
Okay. How are things like banking and retail and telecoms changing with the Gen Z approach?
So a good question is this generation loyal?
No.
No. Not by design, but maybe by convenience. So of the people we surveyed, 99% people say they have loyalty cards and multiple loyalty cards. How many?
Which are all loaded on their phone, obviously.
Yeah. How many of them said, are they loyal? 0. And really, what you're seeing here is a generation that is all about convenience. They're transactional. So bank accounts. When we were at Varsity, we either came in with a bank account or we opened a bank account.
I'm still with the same bank that I started
Yeah, me
with because
too.
it's just too much of a schlep to move.
Exactly.
These guys are not like that.
Yeah. So what
If they find out this one's slightly cheaper or gives them better rates on something, they're out.
Yeah, but it gets even more interesting. So most of the students, almost probably about 55%, have between 1 and 3 bank accounts.
Huh. Wow.
Which is interesting. Like if you look deeper, like on the one side they're saying, well, if I'm getting money from my sponsor, they're using that bank, so I want a direct transfer, so I want it that way, and I get it directly. And if they're getting multiple income sources, so they want multiple bank accounts, they also say it's a hedge against crime. So people can't steal from just I'm spreading my eggs. That's the main thing.
Okay.
And then the other interesting thing is we see, even though they've got 3 bank accounts, 80% of them are still using cash. So now you have tech natives.
Wow.
Now
Using cash.
So this is definitely like a legacy of things that haven't quite corrected. Some of the bugs haven't been fixed in this generation because it's probably something that they learned from their parents or their aunts and uncles. Go straight to the ATM machine as the money lands, draw it all out, hide it under your bed.
Okay.
And I think things will self-correct in the next year or two as you see things like PayShap, which most banks, you can pay someone to their account via their phone, and it's either free or a rand for something between 100 and 200 rand. So students are doing this they see it as spread my risk with multiple banks, draw out my money so no one can steal it, and that means people debit orders and all of that kind of thing. So they want that control, and there are no fees for using cash. So as the environment changes, where it's 0 to no fees, I think we're going to be cashless in the next few years.
What kinds of, you talk about the side hustles, what kinds of side hustles are people in South Africa of this age group trying to do?
I want to be an influencer.
Is that what they want to do? They want to be influencers?
So let's start there. So a few years ago, and this is right around the world, well, since I've been in for 25 years in this business, every year, every graduate recruiter and around the world, every association surveys hundreds of companies. And what's the top company that people want to work for around the world? Yes.
Company to work for.
Is it one of the big Silicon Valley companies?
Is it
Google?
Google or?
Correct.
Yeah.
Does Google hire that many interns?
And just by the way, I've been to Google. I think you have too.
I work on the floor beneath them.
Okay, no, but I mean the one in America,
Oh.
the proper head office, right? Palo Alto.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's like any other office. I hate to break it to you, but they may have a couple of bean bags in fancy colors. They might have little booths that you can go in to have a 20-minute power nap. They might have more on the restaurant menu where you go every day for lunch, but it's pretty much like every other office.
And so what's interesting is in people's minds, they managed to capture this attention where this is the destination you want to work at. In South Africa, I don't think they have a grad program, but for many years, Google was ranked number 1. And over the last few years, influencer went up into the top 3. So what they're basically saying is, I don't want to work for a company, I want to work for me.
That's a big difference between them and the millennials, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we've seen over time is that, and this comes through in our research hugely, and this is where brands need to pay attention, is that they spend so much on their personal identity. So how they appear is they're projecting the best version of themselves online. They're spending a huge amount on clothes, cosmetics, shoes, like an untold fortune, because they're investing in their brand. Their brand is themselves, and how they look and how they appear grows their following, grows their influence, and will open doors. So that's one kind of hustle.
If I can just carry on that one for a little bit. I see it all the time because I'm in digital marketing, largely social media, and for big cosmetics companies. So obviously I'm dealing with, I want to be an influencer every single day. And my core function is to deal with what are we going to do with all of these applicants? What are we going to do with the people who are influencers? Do we create squads of them for each beauty brand. You know, it's so it fills up a lot of my day.
Sounds fucking awful, if you ask me.
So you need a tech solution for that. So I'm just going to drop that in there,
Yeah.
but they are available.
So
But
we've actually created our own. So we now have a massive database of not only influencers but content creators as well. Those who aren't necessarily forward-facing.
Let me just ask you both. If everybody is trying to be an influencer, who the fuck are they influencing?
That's so. What I wanted to say is, an influencer in our minds as Gen X or millennial is, oh, that person is a football player or a soap opera star, or they're a radio presenter, and through that they've garnered followers, and now they are influencers. I want to be an influencer is a weird question in my head. You're supposed to first build yourself up and then you can be an influencer. They've twigged onto that now. And so that's what they're doing. They're literally building these characters of themselves, not because they were humanitarians or football players. They're just becoming an influencer.
yeah, so I think the old way of
Or
looking
like fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
the old way of looking at influencing is you become a superstar in something, and
Yeah.
And
because of
then-
that you have influence and resonance.
Exactly.
Right now, it's all about these small tribes, right?
They work together as well.
So you build up these nano and micro influencer networks, and each of them might have a smaller audience, but the key difference.
But does it have durability? I mean, this is where I'm curious, because obviously the data's not all in on this. We're entering a new era, and I like the way you both describe and define this stuff to me. But I wonder about how substantial it is. Because, sure, you can influence and do some work for a brand over a period of like a few months and maybe drive some results. But because your network is small and because you don't have a whole lot of substance, you're faking it till you make it.
You're also becoming.
Doesn't it run out
you're
after
also
a short
becoming
while?
a brand slut,
But
right?
you're becoming a brand slut, but you also there isn't a lot of fuel in the tank for this to become a proper job for the rest of the decade.
You would
You're going to have
think.
to find other things to
So-
do.
I'm gonna answer this in a totally different way. So this is what I see. Call it from the back end. What we're seeing is people with anywhere from 10 to 50,000 followers, and the big thing you've got to crack with Gen Z is trust. And so in our research, Gen Z will trust 2/3 either their family, their friends, or people they know of influence,
Okay.
and only 30% celeb endorse.
Right.
So they're seeing that the brand sluts are the celebs in their eyes,
Oh, wow.
and people they know or one degree away from are people they trust. And what we see when we work with brands and we go to these micro nano influencers, it's not like 10 years ago you said, I've got this alcohol brand, would you like to work with it? The answer would be yes, like a month ago. Now if you go to them and say, I'm more into health and wellness, I don't think
Right.
it's going to suit my image, and they're almost casting you in their movie, and they're not just saying yes to everything.
Yep.
Well, then I must be Gen Z, because I've always thought celebrities were brand sluts too. So
Yeah,
I
there you
kind of
go.
agree with them. I identify with them. Okay, so here's something interesting from Dirk. He says, our employee contracts allow employees to side hustle as long as their KPIs are met. We've had to incorporate this because of Gen Z. So it's already happening in companies,
Yeah.
which is interesting. They would fix the problems faster than sleepy old politicians, says Pumlani. Probably a good idea too. I've noticed they do work in groups, says Homotso. They work
They
in
do.
groups.
They do work in groups. No, you'll see
Okay.
if you have a big event, for instance, a launch event that you've invited certain influencers to.
Right.
Not only do they pitch up in their groups physically and know each other, but online they provide support to each other in their groups.
Yeah, it's like this hive mentality where they echolocate each other.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing when you bring up companies that I would be really careful about if I was a business owner is that there are two key things that drive this generation. One is authenticity. I want to be free to be me, and I want to be able to express it. that doesn't really get in the way of how I arrive at work, unless it's the way I want to dress or the way I want to be or identify. But the big thing is flexibility. Flexibility is everything, not in just the future of work. So they're thinking, why would you want me to come here from 8 to 5 where I could run my world from the couch?
Yeah.
Now, this is the leftovers from the millennials where they were whining about that. But these guys actually don't want to be there. And
okay, but Ronen, I mean, you run a business, number of businesses. Leigh-Ann is in charge of all these influencers, for example, in her company. I've got this business to run. We've all got stuff to do. And the reality is authenticity and being able to be your authentic self is also an earned privilege. Like, you have to be there for a while before you can start deciding that you will and won't do certain things and that you are and aren't certain things. And same with the flexibility. You want flexibility, you want authenticity, but sometimes we're actually just looking for someone to fill a job. And maybe you're not it, then someone else will be, so you miss your opportunity. And we all, even me, I think I've been fairly authentic my whole life. There were times where I had to do what needed to be done, and it had nothing to do with what I wanted.
Absolutely. So if you see this generation as helping the world to rewire into different ways, even your comment there suggests that you and I come from another world.
Yeah, we do.
Because
realistic fucking world.
Yeah. And,
and this the old man's back.
Yeah,
stepping in, and creeping in.
Okay, let's tell grumpy old man something. So in terms of the flexibility is like, they're thinking like, why should I be there the whole day?
But I kind of get that.
Yeah.
And I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah, I don't want to clock watch when I'm finished.
It's just that I know for a fact that someone who says to me, no, I don't need to be on your clock all the time, I guarantee you they're not at home working. Okay, because and they will say to themselves, I can be responsible, and I'm very organized and disciplined, and I can make this happen. And then they wake up at 10.
I hear you.
You know, you said you would message me at 8:30 this morning, Gen Z kid. Where the fuck's my message? Oh, no, I only woke up at 10. Okay, well, this work from home thing's not working, is it?
Yeah. And, well, I think it's side hustle day. Work from home. And what I'm also seeing is, you know, we come from a world where mastery was really recognized as a thing. So deepen your knowledge on a subject and your experience.
Are they more generalists?
Yeah. What I'm seeing with this generation, they want a tick box. I can do this. Okay, find me another challenge. Find me another challenge. They're not trying to necessarily deepen their craft. And I think that's something we need to teach them, because they see it like a game. Okay, I want to go to the next level. I can do this.
Right.
Tick. I can make a sale. Let me go to the next one. Tick.
100%. I'm seeing that, enjoying checklists, getting through things quickly.
Just give me a challenge, or I'm bored. Give me a challenge.
Okay, so
what can I do next?
Let's give them some credit now, because we've moaned a little bit, but I think it's also worth. There are definitely green shoots with Gen Z. I mean, the positivity thing is something that you both indicated at. I believe they're saving money instead of
100%.
just spending money. You know, it's been very consumer driven in the past couple of generations. I think these guys are actually putting away a lot of what they bring in.
Yeah. So now I'm going to blend in a few of the answers. So if I had to say that basics are the new luxuries, because the rise of food prices and the cost of living, they're spending almost $2,500 a month on groceries. Now, if you're earning somewhere between $3,500 and $5,000 a month, you're spending most of your money on groceries. Obviously, every month's different, so they're fickle. So if they want to put their money somewhere or do something, or go to a festival or travel, you know, they'll just eat less, or they'll make up in other parts. So South Africans are notoriously bad savers, as you know. So if they're only earning between $4,000 and $5,000 a month, and they're saving $1,800, you've got to ask, well, what are they saving on, and why? What's created this behavior? So one is they're credit averse, because they've seen their families and friends burn with credit. So 5 years ago, we would have been talking how badly everyone's been burnt by credit, and credit lenders and all of that are irresponsible. They're now using buy now, pay later. They don't. Only 16% have credit cards, which is a massive change.
That's interesting, huh?
Massive change. The rest are on debit cards and obviously drawing cash. But we've seen them behave very differently. So back to the side hustles. They're seeing betting apps as a side hustle. 30% are investing in cryptos, and they think they're because they're credit shy, but they're okay with a bit of risk.
Okay. That's very interesting. Are these people starting their own thing? When you say side hustles, what stuff really interests them? Aside from the influencer stuff, you mentioned the betting things. What kind of part of the economy do they want to occupy? What's the exciting, sexy stuff for them? Is business exciting for them?
Definitely. So to start off, you always see the usual. So I've been a judge on some entrepreneurial competitions. So the first entries that come in, like you would get influencers. How do you sift them out? When you get like MH Holdings, and underneath there's a cleaning company or a security company, this is the birth of tenderpreneurs. Then you have the comrades in the SRC who's actually funding it, and that's the old school, right? Let me tell you what's coming that's so super exciting. Is like I saw one recently where someone in Mpumalanga at Mpumalanga University has decided, you can't get Uber Eats and you can't get Take-A-Lot deliveries in that area. It's too remote and all of that. So decided to create an app called Smart Delivery, where you can either get lifts or get deliveries of stuff like stationery or anything just in these remote areas, and has created an app for areas for underserviced areas. So what you see is with the use of technology, and I'll give you another example, is this word democratizing.
Okay.
So everyone needs to be able to get these kind of services, whether it's AI, whether it's delivery services. I saw another one which some young girl in the Vaal created this. She wanted to deal with food waste from fast food chains and people who don't have meals. So she 3D printed coupons. She sells coupons for cheap, and people can buy these coupons and go to these fast food restaurants and buy food before it expires. So people are really thinking on this, taking technology and seeing how they can scale things. I mean, when we wanted to learn about AI in our business, we brought in a 19-year-old who's now developed. He'll explain to you what you need, kind of thing. And that's what makes me excited.
So that's awesome. Okay, good. I do want to go back to criticizing them a little bit, though, because I don't know whether it's their fault, but it's going to be very hard for these Gen Z guys and girls to be able to afford their own place. So a lot of them are going to rent for most of their lives. I don't know what the average age now for people's first property is, but I don't know whether Gen Z even have hope that they'll own a place one day. And property is a big deal because it's the first step in terms of generating real wealth. And once you own the place you live, you have a security that you don't have otherwise. The other problem is, of course, that they all dream of travel and all of this kind of thing, but it's becoming more expensive to do that sort of stuff. And if you're on a small salary and you're side hustling your backside off, there is also only so much that your money will get you. How are they spending what little they have? You mentioned food already, but I think transport's a big part of that too. And where do they live? How are they going to stay in mom and dad's basement until they're 40?
So it's interesting when you survey those that stay at home, which are the lucky few, it's like, where do you get your groceries? Well, the fridge is always full.
No, right. In other
Mom
words,
makes me lunch when she makes her
and
own.
you probably find those parents have also paid a bit of petrol money or whatever else as well. So those are the lucky people.
That's the lucky few. When you look at the rest, what I'm seeing is people that word ownership doesn't really feature as much.
I don't care about
because
that.
I think they've realized in many ways, firstly, they want flexibility. Flexibility comes in product, and they want to rent more than they own. So even cars, when you go to university, there's so few less cars. Like nowadays, the GTRs and the VWs and all that, and the Mags and all that.
Right.
That doesn't exist as much anymore. They're hand-me-downs, but it's more. They realize that things have become expensive. What are they actually saving for is rainy days. 25% are rainy days, and then my next purchase. So rainy days could be my rainy day or my family's rainy day. So it's become a Ubuntu style kind of, I know there's going to be a rainy day, not this week, next week or something. But what you're really seeing is around this renting is not even they don't even talk of having a house anymore. It was always, I want to buy my mother a house. I want to help restore things in my community. But everything now is they want flexibility. I want my banking. I want flexibility in my banking product, in my telco products. I don't want to sign a contract. I just want. That's why they also have. It's become a Tinder economy where you've got multiple partners. So I've got this guy for data, this one for this one for social. I want choice. I want flexibility, and I'm loyal as long as it suits me, not you. I'm loyal by convenience, not by design.
I think this is fascinating. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be an easy transition for the market the way that it is now, or for the market that the Gen Z guys and girls want, because they're quite different things. And I think there's still a lot of old school thinking being applied to fairly new school ways of dealing with stuff. I don't know what's going to win, but I kind of like the sound of the Gen Z crew. I think they sound a lot more switched on. They sound like they've got very distinct priorities and clear lines, and they're going to get their way. Even if it's only because there are more of them.
Yeah, there's more of them.
And also remember, they were raised predominantly by Gen X.
Yeah. Which makes them
Yeah.
very scary.
So if they've been raised by a Gen Xer, then I have a lot of faith.
Shade says half of Gen Z don't even know how to start a car. Well, probably because they don't need to. The construction mafia is now even a threat to small general contractors in the private sector in areas outside the metros. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about, Jody. I mean, I'm wearing white socks today. Fucking exciting concept, but it's not what we're talking about. I really have to train these. I sometimes think our audience is so clever, and sometimes I think they're so stupid. And then, when I'm thinking they're clever, Jody comes and ruins it with a comment like that. Dirk says the situation in Australia might be slightly different. You're already getting priced out of the property market at a young age, regardless of how you wanted to maybe invest in things.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So in South Africa, what are the things they care about outside of the economy? Are they hugely into politics? Are they hugely into religion? Are they hugely into family? Are they hugely into going out and drinking? I mean, I've heard interesting things about how they don't really drink or do drugs. They want to be healthy.
So there's been this huge shift in terms of wellness. Remember, they're the generation that sort of outed mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So they became very comfortable about talking about mental health and mental health issues. I think they've also taken things a bit too far. So with the internet, like they now wear their labels. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm
it's
this,
in their bio.
I'm OCD. Yeah. So it's almost like they
I'm
wear...
on these 7 different medicines, so don't contact me before 10 o'clock at night. Yeah.
So they kind of label their mental health issues just like pronouns, and but it's been very good because now we can talk about these things. What we're seeing in terms of the social sphere is how they're very social, so they're very family orientated and friends orientated. They don't spend enough time together because they're locked on their screens for so long.
Is their virtual self almost more important than their real self?
Yeah, so for them it's so fluid. For us it's like still separate. For them it's so fluid, and they don't realize mental health is such a big issue, but they don't realize what they're feeding their mind.
By being online the whole time.
Yeah, so they're feeding their bodies better. And like Woolies is seen as a payday treat. and how they appear. So they'll go to a shopping center or fancy restaurants once a month or twice a month to look good, have some new content.
To impress strangers.
Yes. And the same is when they go out, is that they are generally drinking less. They'll drink much cheaper at home when no one's looking.
So is it because they can't afford it? This is not necessarily because they don't want to drink.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they are tending towards the healthier side of the alcohol market, so the light beers and all of that. But what we're seeing is very interesting, and you might know from your influencer space is payday weekend is when they literally blow 80% of what they have, and they will go literally spastic. And when it
like
comes
a mine
to
worker on payday.
yeah, and when they've learned from the best, and when it comes to things like popping bottles, they're now renting bottles.
Oh, okay.
No,
Well,
you don't have to drink. If it's not really going that well, you rent. You take the pictures, you pretend it's all going well, then you return the bottles and go home because it
must be
all
so
for
self-defeating. Can you imagine the feeling of getting back in the Uber after you've pretended to have a big night out with your friends and you've rented a bottle of champagne that costs 4,000 Rand, but you didn't open it, and then you get back in the Uber, sober as a judge,
and
you have to go
alone.
back to your shitty life. How depressing.
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad I'm not in Gen Z. Actually, I've changed my mind. They were doing really well for a minute there. Now that's just shit. Oh, that's horrible. That's super interesting. So, lots of people in here saying that you're teaching them all kinds of things. I find them to be selfish at times, says Khomotso. Well, that's probably that individuality, the authenticity, the flexibility.
Yeah, and they're unapologetic about their views. They're unapologetic about them being themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's I and we. First me and we.
And let's also be fair that when you're at that age, if you're under the age of 25, where the majority of this age group is, you do only think of yourself because that's all there is for you to think about. After that, maybe family and friends, and then beyond that, other groups of
Boyfriends
people.
and girlfriends and partners is big.
And that's normal. So let's not regard them as being particularly evil or good. Shade says, won't being on technology all the time and half being raised by screens to keep kids quiet because social anxiety outside the house and influencer groups. I don't know where that sentence ends, but okay. Maybe even speech problems when they're young. Well, I've noticed a couple of things. I don't think this really goes to your study, but I'd love your remarks on it anyway. I've noticed that making eye contact is difficult for a lot of people under the age of 30 in South Africa, but also in the rest of the world, because we're not very different to anywhere else in the world. In that respect, I find also that reading and understanding body language is for these people difficult because they don't have as much real-world communication as we used to. And their language tends to be kind of simplified. They're using less words. Maybe that's a good thing, to communicate
Fewer words.
more. See, fewer words. Thank you, Leigh-Ann. Fewer words to communicate more. And they struggle to speak to strangers. It's quite intimidating, social anxiety or whatever it is, right? These are real problems that Gen Z is going to have to confront if it wants to go into business, because the only way you do business is by networks, connections, meeting people, talking to people. You have to be able to do that stuff. You can't use AI to do that for you, not yet.
I've witnessed people physically freeze up when their phone rings, and it's it's a client.
Yeah, but I'm kind of getting like that too. So
I mean, who phones anymore?
exactly,
Anyway?
Ronen. I don't phone you. I send you a voice note at worst, but normally it's a text.
You can't just phone anyone. You have to message them to ask if you can phone them.
Yeah.
Right. That's
I mean,
the way
I
it
don't
works.
phone you. When last
It's
did you and I
true.
speak to each
No,
other on the
it's
phone?
true.
So we're not very different in that respect. But do you agree with most of what I said?
Yeah, with most of it. And I think so firstly, we hold our phones here, and I think that could explain the eye contact thing. I'm used to looking at people down here and not up here. And it could be like quite intimidating looking at people in the eyes, because it's also quite distorted on a screen. Remember, that's their main portal to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So things are looking different. Where I'm concerned, and I think we're at that nexus, with the addition of AI in the last few years, well, ChatGPT specifically, is I think we're at the same time as when our parents changed from the slide rule to the calculator. And they thought, how on earth are our kids going to be able to think if they can't use the slide rule? And so now with ChatGPT and all the other things, is that the ability to think is going to be your ability to prompt, your ability to speak to it.
Yes.
But you still need language for that stuff.
Yes. So prompting is the new superpower. And what's going to get really interesting, because we're only at the nascent stage of all of this. So the next step is AGI, when the machines can really think.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be trouble.
How are they doing? And I know this is probably, again, ancillary to what you actually studied in the survey and what you researched in the survey. But how are they doing in terms of relationships, personal relationships, and sex? Because I've heard they're not having any, or less.
So it's
Fewer sex.
Fewer sex. No, don't talk shit, Leigh-Ann. Less. It's less. They're having less sex, and their relationships are more difficult than previous relationships between 20-somethings might have been.
Yeah, so it was out of scope of this study. But,
yeah, sure.
But I can tell you maybe that's why there aren't any emoji on what we were talking about earlier, because they talk about it. They're on OnlyFans. They're watching plenty porn, but I think that's making them a little anxious, and they're not having as much as. They're not as sociable creatures as maybe we were.
So what's it all for, you pathetic wah? Come on. Like, what is that all about?
So
honestly, what's the point? I mean, what's the point of going out, for example, with someone you're interested in, and you're renting a bottle and you're going home to not have sex? I mean, it just sounds like the most awful, dystopian, ugly situation imaginable. And you're clearly not having fun because you're on your phone the whole time. So you're not even talking to the people that you're with. Sounds bad. I think we've got to find a good balance here, and I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that everything we did was right back in the day, because I think some of it was lame as fuck. And I think there's so much that the phone brings to our lives that's valuable. I mean, I pay for everything on it. I Uber everywhere. I order stuff. I do whatever I can and need to from a social point of view on there as well, and work. And I love it. So I'm not like some Luddite, but I really think there's a bit of the real world that has to come into your life. You have to do physical things around actual humans. And the best moments, if I think about, anything, and I've got friends who are in their 20s and friends who are in their 90s. And the best things are when you're together sharing things, sharing stories, experiences. That's the kind of stuff everybody should be doing. Can't do that on a screen.
Yeah, I think what we're learning after the COVID pandemic is that the real pandemic, or the long tail, is loneliness.
Oh, hell yeah.
So here we're living in a world that is so hyper-connected, but we've never felt so lonely.
Hell yeah.
And so the antidote is actually what you were speaking about earlier, is just looking people in the eyes and warm-blooded connection, and switching off from the virtual world is what really creates this meaning and this connection, and it's the oxytocin moments.
So before you go, because we've got like a minute left, Khomotso says, I wonder if Gen Alpha, that's the next one, right? Yeah. That's the next group, is going to annoy Gen Z. Of course they will. We'll all annoy each other. I mean, our parents were annoyed by us. We'll annoy the next generation. They'll annoy the one after that. So what do we have on them? Because they're starting to become more and more voluble, loud, obvious, present.
Well, just think, this is going to worry you, because they'll be the children of millennials and the older Gen Z. So basically what you're going to get,
fuck up.
It's like the pendulum that swings. So you're going to get what my advice is to everyone: get used to Gen Z, because Gen Alpha is going to be a more intensified version of Gen Z.
Enjoy Gen Z while they last.
Yeah, this is your practice.
Wow.
This is
Gen Z, I welcome you with open arms. I'm just terrified of Gen Alpha now. Holy shit. Ronen, I love what you're doing. I think this is so great. Don't forget, you can also watch what Bronwyn does with us, which is Biz Trends, also here on the Real Network. And Student Village going well?
Yeah.
You
great.
guys are still the best and the biggest. You know more about these people than anyone else.
Thankfully.
And you do it better. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
No, well done.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you, dude. All right, we'll be back on Wednesday at 6 a.m. bright and early. Enjoy that while it lasts. I'm still working on getting this show down to 1 a week. It's coming, so just prepare yourself, all right? Don't be surprised when I announce it suddenly. It's going to happen. Get ready. There we go. On that happy note, enjoy your Monday.